Hello, hello, NWI. Welcome to Bluer by the Lake, the podcast that explores region life from a blue lens. I'm your host, Tracy Martin, and I am trying to get my thing to go live. And it's not doing it. So, NWI, I'm sorry. Let me see if it's doing what it's supposed to. It doesn't seem like it is.
I'm on.
It is doing it. Yes.
It's doing it.
Yay. Success. I'm so okay, because that was super complicated. All right. So let's start this over again. Hey, NWI, welcome to the very inaugural first live episode of Bluer by the Lake. I am your host, Tracy Martin, and right now I'm feeling pretty fabulous about myself because I figured that shit out. Man, was it complicated to figure that shit out. It's like, put this blue key in here, and then use your LR string, and then refresh the blah, 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 blah. So I did it. Yes. All right. So on with the show. So I am your host, Tracy Martin, and I will be your MC for this first ever NWI Dems Cage match. Ring a ding 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 ding. So I wanted to see if I could find some boxing audio clips, but I didn't find them. So okay, whatever.
Hannah can do that. You know what? She kicked my ass.
Yeah. Okay.
She was like climbing mountains the other day. I'm like,
Yeah, I
I got
was.
up to a 2-story house and I was thrilled.
I'm proud of you.
All right. Well, then, all right. In one corner, we have Carmen Ware. Ding, 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 ding. Carmen's got a mighty right hook, and she's ready to let it loose on Progressive Dem Hannah Trueblood Villani. Ooh, Carmen, you better duck, because Hannah's pretty fierce with an
Telling you,
uppercut.
you know what?
and
I don't have
coming.
to duck. I'm short. I'm very short and shrinking.
Goes
every
right
day.
over the head.
All right. Ladies, wait a second. I don't see you with your boxing gloves.
Oh, I forgot. I'm sorry. They were.
Aw,
Kidding.
man. Aw, man.
They got too
All right.
expensive from the tariffs. I couldn't afford them.
That's right.
I know, right, dude?
I just took it right there.
Maybe we could go knit them.
They're probably made in Ecuador or somewhere.
Yeah,
Where's
somewhere.
the boxing origin? Or maybe Greece.
I
Somewhere.
have the best idea ever. What I think we're going to do is we're going to form a multi-generational old liberal moms / white women club where we knit boxing gloves, because that's what we do.
I
Crazy
don't
things.
knit. Full disclosure. That's
You don't knit?
Nope.
Can
I
maybe
don't. I don't
quilt
fit the
again.
stereotype.
I used to quilt. I could pick it up again, but the knitting, I'd
Yeah.
have
You
to
know,
like.
that is the only needle art I can't do, quilting. And counted cross stitch. My mom tried doing that, and then like she would do that, but it's like my eyes are like, no. Okay. All right, guys, we're digressing. Obviously, in all seriousness, Carmen here is a moderate Dem. Hannah is a progressive Dem. They are not here, in case, it escaped you. They're not here to give each other a black eye. They both kindly accepted my invitation to have two friends come on to talk about the differences between progressives and moderates. And frankly, in this day and age, that was an act of bravery on both of their parts. Because I'm serious.
Tiffany!
Well, because I think any issue divides our party more right now. In the fact that some of us are progressives, some of us are moderates, and it feels like the fact that those two different sections exist is something that we cannot get past. And that's a problem we're going to have to solve. Toot sweet, because we've got real shit to be dealing with, and this can't be it. So, here's a little backstory, folks, and then we're going to get into the real fun stuff, because I know you don't all want to hear me talk. You want to hear Hannah and Carmen talk. But here's the backstory to this. I identify as a progressive, and someone called me a radical leftist, and I'm like, Like, do you know me, dude? Like, I am the least radical person I know. I'm a choir girl, and I'm baking bread, and then I'm gonna go take my dog for a walk, and then go fold laundry, and I'm in bed by 9. So there's not a lot of radical in my body here. Um, and I'm watching so many of my friends who call themselves moderate get like really excited about Ma'am Donnie's win and some of the pieces of his platform, and I'm like, huh. So aside from some very specific things, I couldn't really think of like any real values that divided the two camps. So and I couldn't think of any general progressive goals that my moderate friends didn't embrace. And it got me wondering, so what are those differences? So, what are the issues that truly divide us? And I wanted to do a little digging into that. And so, like all good Gen X moms, I hopped on Facebook and put a post in my Facebook groups and I asked people to chime in because that's what you do when you're Gen X or older and you want to hive mind answers. You go to Facebook and you go to your Facebook groups. And so I posted a post in my Facebook groups and a couple different ones, and I asked people to chime in and say, what are the difference between progressives and moderates? What do you think? Let's have an honest conversation. And the answers were just absolutely fascinating. So before we get into all that, though, let's meet our lovely friends that are coming in here and they're breaking the ice on this untouchable topic. All right.
Pun intended.
Carmen and Hannah. Carmen, how did you and Hannah meet?
So, Hannah and I met 3 years ago, I think it was. We both are realtors, and we both work for a company called App Properties, Christie's International. I'm in the Highland Lake County office, and she's out of the Valparaiso Porter County office. And so, her mother was I don't know if you say activist or if you'd say involved in politics, whatever, however you want to put it. My mom was also involved in politics, at a low level. She was a precinct vice. So I was used to, when I was growing up, being around all that. And, so we had that in common. So that's how we met. And, just to show you, probably one of the reasons that we were both attracted to our company is because whenever you see this little love around, that's what we do. So it's
That's right.
constantly in our face instead
That's
of
where
hate.
the love sign stuff comes from.
Yes, ma'am.
It.
So it's a
Wonderful.
constant reminder, right? Every day I
Mhm.
put it on my notebook, and every day when I look at it or try to figure out, like, getting something out of my trunk, I see the decal, it's a reminder. It's like an affirmation constantly. Um, behavior modification, CBT, whatever you want to call it.
100%. Well, and
go.
it's funny. I have this tattoo. It says "Love wins."
Love wins. Yes, it does.
Yeah,
Yes, it
I got
does. Yes,
that.
it
I
does.
got that in whatever year it was at marriage equality. What year was that? Was that 2014 when they legalized gay marriage
Yeah, I don't
federally?
remember. I
I
don't
don't
remember.
remember either.
Oh, it was a long time ago, but yeah, I got that, and so that's my constant reminder. And when I learned about App Properties and saw the love, and it was like the same love, I was like, oh, we were meant to be. We're soulmates.
Right.
Wow,
It was a divine appointment. Yeah.
Hannah, what's your favorite thing about Carmen?
I have so many. No, but I would say the first thing that comes to mind, my favorite thing about Carmen, is that she has such an excellent way of speaking her mind and being kind of to the point about it, but in a way that it's hard to argue with. Like, she just says it how it is, and it is what it is, but it's not offensive. Some people are like, I tell it how it is, and they tell it how it is. Carmen actually tells it how it is in a way that, I mean, in my opinion, is a receptive, fair way of doing it. And it's so hard when you're arguing with dorks on the internet. It's hard to keep that eloquence. And I think that she just does such a good job. I don't even engage with those people online anymore. Because I have a harder time with it.
Yeah. It's really hard not to feed the trolls.
In those ways. I mean, in
purposely
person, get me in
do,
person and I
exactly.
could talk to anyone, but, online, it's tough. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, actually,
I don't know if you caught that, but I purposefully engage with people whose ideas are different than mine
Yes.
because I want to practice and I want to learn things. And, I live by myself and I don't have any immediate family. So I'm sitting here at night going, well, what else could I do? Oh, I just get on the internet, find people who have different ideas, find
Hey, you
people who
know
are looking
what?
for homes.
If that
well,
works, that's a
that
good way of
too.
going about
But
it.
let's go back to the talking to people with different ideas thing here, because I like that. And I think that is a skill set that we are going to have to resurrect from the dead. Because it is going to be, no one will come out of a foxhole if you're standing over it with a gun, ready to shoot them when they get there.
Oh,
They
yeah,
can't
good
come out
saying.
of that
Exactly.
rabbit hole
I like that.
unless unless you give them a reason to do it. So we need to relearn those skills. And sounds to me like we have some real lessons to learn here from you, Carmen. So we're going to dig in. All right. So I'm going to start on the moderate side of things and some of the progressive comments about moderates, which is what brought Carmen to my attention. All right, guys. Now remember, these are quotes from other people. I am not saying these things. This is the
Did we
general
mention
consensus.
that we're realtors? We get beat up on a daily basis.
Yeah, y'all are
Yeah.
tough. Um, but anyway, when I asked people, there were some general themes that seemed to perk up about, how the two camps viewed each other. And this quote from one person kind of encapsulates the way people tend to view moderates. It says, moderates prioritize corporations over the working and middle class in order to expand the empire. When push comes to shove, they will always choose upholding the imperial structure. All right,
Star Wars much?
of the country in over the well-being of the people. Evidence of this is shown when they don't codify progressive laws or refuse to roll back Republican-made policy. All right. So, I mean, obviously, there's a smidgen of hyperbole of stretch
Right,
there,
right,
but I
right.
mean, I think
Are
we
they
get the gist.
talking about the politicians in DC or are they talking about people that are moderate or we don't know?
The question was specifically, what do you think divides and separates moderates in general
Okay.
from, yeah. And so, Carmen, I know when you started seeing the gist of this, the idea that, that moderates are more focused on their own economic well-being. They want to maintain the social structures as they are intact, the current corporate system of American capitalism. That was the gist I got from the
Okay.
comments that I read. Now, when I saw you and your comments, you're like, I'm moderate, but none of this feels like me.
Right. Right.
Now, does this describe how you feel about the state of the world? Are you interested in prioritizing corporations over the working and middle class in order to expand the empire?
Could I just say fuck no? But I think that if I could just preface my answers to this, because probably nobody watching this knows me, but my dad was a soldier for life, and he gave his life in Vietnam when I was 5. My
Oh,
mother was an immigrant from Germany, and she grew up during the Hitler time.
my
So,
mother-in-law grew up in Hitler's Germany.
so these are the things that frame my reference. My mother never remarried when my dad died, and there were very specific reasons for that. She wanted to make sure that we had money coming in, and she knew that if she got married and the man was an alcoholic, a philanderer, unfaithful, whatever, beat her up, beat me up, whatever. The minute that she gets married, all that money goes away, and then she could be left with no education in a newer country, trying to raise me. So that's my framework. So as far as big corporations, no, I've always been for the working class and for small business. Now, if somebody starts out in small business and makes it big, I'm thrilled for them. I just want them to keep the same values that they started out with.
Hmm. So, Hannah, so which of the descriptions that we've heard about Carmen's belief systems more connects to the way you view your friend here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, first, I would agree that, I mean, most moderates that I know and am familiar with don't support what that comment that was made. And I think, Carmen, when you asked that first question, are we talking about the people in DC or are we talking about real people? I just want to make like, I want to highlight that and like concur with that because I think that's an important
It's a distinction.
differentiator. Yeah, because their interests, whether or not they declare whatever party, at the end of the day, the interests lie within the people that fund their careers.
Yes.
And oftentimes, even if you can be well-intentioned to start, I mean, we've seen track records before of people that get in there and they promise great things and they sell out their constituents because,
Mhm.
they got to get reelected,
Kirsten
right?
Sinema.
And so, yeah, I won't name names on this podcast,
I will.
but
Kirsten
what
Sinema.
but, I just think that that's such an important thing because it's so easy in this environment with the media the way that it is. The whole media conglomerate is all about clicks and likes and links and anger and frustration
Sells.
and fighting. That sells and that engages and that gets clicks. And so the media has done a really good job of convincing us that we are actually in opposition of one another because when we're fighting with each other, for one, it keeps them rich, and for
Yes.
two, it keeps our attention away from the issues that are actually problematic for all of us, which are them. And so I just think that that's an important thing, like when we're talking about progressives and moderates and how people view people on the other, opposite spectrums of the Democratic Party, that distinction is made that the majority of Americans do not support that type of belief system, Democrat, Republican, or otherwise.
Right.
It's a fed narrative that we have absorbed, and many have allowed us to color the way that we view our neighbors within the party. And so, I think that it's important. I know you asked me a different question, but I wanted
No,
to
I want
like put
you
that in
keep.
there. Um, but so to kind of answer your, like, I don't know, maybe that does kind of answer the question of just how do I view that? I view that is not the truth and that it's not real. And that at the end of the day, the corporations care about the corporations, and any
Right.
individual that claims to care about a corporation likely only does so because that corporation puts food on their table and pays their mortgage.
Yep.
And there's a level of loyalty that's required from the workforce to be able to grow these businesses to do what they do and provide the products that they do. And, we're seeing it a lot with unions. I think the unions are a really great example of the difference between progressive and moderate because, there's a term hard hat dem. And that's kind of like when I hear the word moderate, like moderate Democrat, the first person that kind of like populates in my mind is like a hard hat dem, like a union Democrat, like just like classic working class blue collar person, right? And to a degree, a lot of times they're swayed, in a slightly more right or,
Yeah.
right of center, direction because they've been fed the narrative that progressive policies are actually going to be damaging to the workforce.
Right.
It seems like it's
So,
working out so well for them now, does it?
yeah, and so I think that that's an important distinction to make when we're talking about that, and that's really kind of how I feel about it in general is that, it's a fallacy just in general.
So, well, you know what? Let's go then. Look at the other side of the equations. Let's talk about the progressive side of things for a minute. Full disclosure, folks, less people were comfortable identifying as moderate, and after reading a lot of the comments that I was seeing, I understand why. But a general theme I found is that from people who identified as moderate, their feelings about progressives were that they are naive, idealistic, and selfishly focused on one very narrow ideology that ultimately harms people by keeping Republicans in power. Hannah, how would you respond to that?
I'm glad you asked me that, and because I think that it's a fair um it's a fair assessment in certain rooms, but again, I think ultimately these mass produced, like conceptualized putting people in boxes thing is what's just going to get us in trouble, that there really isn't like a moderate box and a progressive box. It's just like we're all a box of people, and like everybody's going to have their own thing where they like there's things about that I think about that are probably more less progressive than you would assume, from a flamin' liberal like me. And so,
Same.
that's kind of the thing, right? But it is true, I think, that when you look into we love nuance. When you're looking at progressive politics and you're looking at people who are vocally progressive, you are looking at independent thinkers. When
Yes.
you look at it on the right is very hive mind. It's very like you get in line, you come together on the common theme, and whatever the differences may be over here doesn't matter. The theme, the idea is this is the target. We are going for the target. They get organized, they get on the train, and they just ride the train home. When it comes to progressives and Democrats, generally, not everybody, but generally, you're looking at independent thinkers. You are looking at highly educated people. There are significantly more progressives and Democrats that have higher college educations than that of the other side. I dropped out of college, so like I don't qualify as that part. But it's an important thing to consider, because when you're looking at highly educated people and you're looking at people who are independent thinkers, the whole concept of independent thinking is that you're not thinking like everybody else. And so of course you're going to pick up on those things that really mean a lot to you, and you're going to run with that. And it's kind of like the double-edged sword where, yeah, you care about those things and you find the nuance and you identify, these things that really matter to you, and you kind of think outside of the box. It's easy to get trapped in a different box and kind of put those blinders on. And so I think it's less of naivete and more of just it's defensiveness in a way. Like we feel like we need to defend our independent thought because we feel alone on the mountain, because we're the only ones up here with this independent thought, and everybody else like has their own independent thought. And so, that's an issue within our party that we need to address, and that is just part of the deconstruction of party politics in general. that might be a
Yes.
whole other podcast, but I think that idealism comes from independent thought, and I wouldn't consider that an issue, but I would say that we need to do a much better job of communicating and recognizing that the two things can be true at the same time. One does not take away from the other. My mom always says it's not pie. When you take a slice of the pie, now there's, only 6 slices instead of 7 slices. But this pie, somebody taking the pie, it doesn't produce having rights or having this or having that isn't going to take away from the next person. It doesn't work that way. It's not that kind of equation.
So, Carmen, the description I just read about progressives, do you feel like that is that how you see Hannah?
How I see Hannah? No.
Mhm. So
Um,
how do you?
so because I'm not around in person so much with progressives, because I'm just like not around, I'm doing my work and coming home and, um, but if I watch on social media, even the real events, what I just come back to my mom all the time, who used to lay on the couch and watch politics on TV and yell at them about they should have done this tactic or that strategy is off. You're not going to win votes that way. And so I think it's not that I don't care about their particular niche, if and that's not the right word, but niche concerns. It's just that those concerns don't mean squat if you can't win. So I think I'm probably more practical. And I think that comes with age, because, you start off in life and you're pretty liberal generally. And they say, you get older and you get more conservative. I don't know that I've gotten more conservative. I've gotten more practical about how I want to present something. And I think that younger people, by definition, are progressive and they're quicker than I am now. I used to be like moving and thinking at the speed of light. I'm still thinking at the speed of light, but the movement is not there.
Same.
And so
Same,
I think,
friend.
younger progressives, they're like, come on, we want change right now, right now. And my body in this postmenopausal state can't even think like, oh my God, we can change that right now. I don't think we can do that. I don't feel that quick. And so for me, the change is gradually, then suddenly.
Mm.
And I think that might be the difference.
It's a tipping point sort of situation where you think things go where there's nothing but change can happen.
Well, yes, and probably because I can still look back when I was in senior high and having to protect my little gay friend because he was getting bullied, and then, all the way up to my gay friends, I'm going, oh crap, now I can't get a lavender marriage. They all got legally married. Half of them got kids. They're like parents, they're PTA, they're carpool. I'm like, where the fuck are my boys? You know what I mean?
Oh no, dang
They
it.
settle down.
I know.
Oh,
Sounds
man.
like love.
Right.
And they told me gay rights wasn't going to affect the straight community.
You know what?
Well,
Lying, girl. It affected me in a real visceral way. But yeah, and one of the things that I find so interesting, and maybe forbidden love lasts longer, but all my gay friends have been married much longer than a lot of my straight friends have. Although the people that I went to school with that are straight, the people that I talk to the most, have some years behind their marriages.
Well, I think that what you've said about the gradual, like the ... and then sudden, and then also kind of looking at the whole, sometimes you can't change everything all at once and you got to take it one at a time. There is an interesting part of the founding of the United States that I think should be mentioned is that one of the big rifts and one of the reasons that we almost didn't have that occur at the Constitutional Convention was because they had originally written in to end slavery back when they were drafting the original documents. And that was a huge rift between the colonies. Right. And it was, I mean, and we were pretty close, we just barely got the votes to do it. But that was one of the things where I've learned about this in this John Adams HBO thing that I watched. That was super fascinating.
Check that out.
Yes. And they said that was originally in it. And I remember there was a scene where they were all having, John Adams and Thomas Jefferson and all those guys were having that conversation, and they were like, dude, I totally get it, but man, this is going to cost us the United States of America. We have to save this for later. This is a losing battle.
Right.
And so that style of thought process has been built.
Yes. And that's
into
where
the foundations of our republic.
Yes, exactly. And I think that I agree with it, but at the same time, when you zoom out and you look at it from that perspective, you're like, is it necessary?
Well, and think about it. 65 years I've been on this earth, so that's pretty gradually. So I can appreciate your point of view.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. But no, I think that and that's kind of one of those interesting things where it's yes, and, or maybe it's yes, but.
Did you guys watch the Ken Burns
Vietnam
American Revolution documentary?
Not yet, but I want to.
Fascinating because it touches very much on what you said. The discussion about slavery was embedded into the founding of our nation from the get-go, and it was a dividing one then. And you're right, a lot of that practical, the narrative about practical expectations about what we can achieve versus what we want to see politically in our nation. It was built, that framework was in there as well. So I think it's I think you've touched on something that really kind of reflects a way a lot of people feel about this topic. So let's talk about where the common ground is. Hannah, where do you and both of you, either one of you can take this first. What things do you guys agree on?
I think, I mean, I'd be interested to see kind
You
of where this
you
conversation
talk while I
goes,
get rid
but
of the mascot here who won't stop fighting.
bring the pet, bring the pet,
That's
bring the
right.
cat in the frame,
Right,
or the
right.
dog, whoever it is.
Yeah, yeah.
No, so I think that generally, like when between her, like Carmen and me, from the conversations that we've had and the posts that I read and things, I feel like generally speaking, ideologically, I mean, morally and integrally, it is the same at the end of the day. And really, it's like splitting hairs probably
Yes.
when we're really looking at like it's again, I think the theme of the night is nuance. It's less of like what you say, but how you say it. And I
Yes.
think that is that's the commonality, and then like the major difference between a moderate and a progressive is just like what that label is. It's all under the same roof. And it's more of a fake news, propaganda, division than anything, like
Bullshit. Bullshit, let's
but
call it.
like if you look at it on the right, you've got the GOP, right? The Grand Old Party. You got the John McCain's of the world, right? And you got the Mitt Romney's of the world. And then you got the Trump MAGA people, right? And like all of those. When you look at the MAGA movement versus the GOP doesn't exist anymore. It's
No.
not like it doesn't like that splintered off quick. And that went, it was like a disease that like infiltrated the entire thing. And again, hive mind. Let's look at the psychological differences like of the brain. There's studies of that, of people who are conservative versus progressive. So,
Yep.
like looking at it like that, I think that even just like if you did a brain scan of the two of us, the way that our synapses work, we're
Absolutely.
coming to the same conclusions. We're just taking a different path.
Yep.
And the big issue between moderates and progressives is that we're arguing with each other about which path is better, when in reality, both paths get you to the same place. So who freaking cares?
Right. Well, your path, I'll do mine. We'll meet in the middle.
We'll meet in the
We'll
middle.
meet at
If
the
you
end
need
of the
help,
boat
give me
when
a
we've achieved
call.
it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like Candyland.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ugh. So it's interesting that you said it's not what you're saying, it's how you say it. I'm going to amend that a little bit. Say it's when you say it, because
That too.
that seems to be the biggest in all of my research. It's been the biggest driver because a spoiler alert, folks, progressives and moderates policy wise, they tend to want the same exact
Yeah.
things. I could not find a single one where people were like, yeah, no, I don't want, accessible health care for everybody. No, I don't want women to have full and equal rights. No, I don't want gay people to be able to get married. No, I don't want um their people to be able to afford to pay their utilities and send their kids. A lot of the progressive agenda, so to speak, is really just a Democrat agenda. But
Yes.
what I did see that a lot of people are concerned about the potentiality of outcomes of embracing those agendas full force. So here's a quote that I really liked that kind of summed it up. Progressives are risk takers. Moderates want to get things done slowly without risk. Both believe in doing what's right, just at different speeds. Carmen, does that resonate with you? And if so, what's the risk that you're afraid of?
Me personally?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so the thing that I would be afraid of would be that in my belief system, Donald Trump is a genius at a reality TV, and we're living in a reality TV land. And every time he opens his mouth, we fail to remember that he's trying to rope us in and get we're like fish, and he's hooking us every time. And then he gets us like so emotional, we sound like we're crazy. And he can do that.
Gaslighting.
I mean, better than anyone in my entire life that I have ever seen on TV or off. Number one, let's stop calling him stupid. because
Good
he's a
point.
genius in certain areas, as are all of us, right? Just because a fish can't ride a bicycle doesn't mean they're not a genius, according to Einstein, right? So I think that's where the fear of risk comes from, because I want to think about it a minute just to make sure that I haven't done something impulsive, because most of my life I was like fire, ready, aim, you know?
Mm.
And like after getting a little bit older and then, having some illness, some cancer and stuff, and you start to get a little bit more, I don't what thoughtful, mindful, I don't know what the word is. Um
Thinking of repercussions that you might not yet be able to see.
yes, yes, and I now when I was younger, and when I say when I was younger, I'm 65 now, I mean like 62. When I was younger, I never thought of the repercussions. I never thought of the unintended consequences or consequences of my behavior or my words. I always like could see others, and like I could see a mile away when somebody would mention something like, this is a policy we like, and I could like rattle it out in my brain and come up with bullet points like that in my brain as to why that wouldn't work or why some of it would and some of it wouldn't. Okay. But because I became so hyper aware of my own impulsiveness and my own blurting
Mm.
out, and people telling me that I was brutally honest, which sounds like a compliment, but brutal is not such a compliment, right?
Hmm.
So,
It can leave people feeling unrespected.
correct. And I never want that. Never want that. And so like when people have told me, man, you just say what you think. I don't know how you get away with it. My one boss told me that many years ago, and I teased her and I said, well, God gave me a sense of humor so people would laugh and then not kill me. And I I believe that's the secret to my success. Not, still not being dead. Because I can say some pretty like blunt things, but I think I've learned to like make them softer. And I work at it, I promise you, every day. Almost every Facebook post, I think about it, I write it, I delete it, I write it again, I put it through Chat GPT and say, put it in Carmen, but kind tone. You know what I mean? So it's really, it's become a spiritual practice, really. You know,
Well, and it's one to be admired because as we were talking about earlier off the air, um, the lost art of speaking to others in ways that make them feel like you respect their basic intelligence, which
yes.
is which is the minimal threshold
Oh
to
my
achieve
God.
change for someone. No one is going to take you seriously if they feel that you don't respect their intelligence.
Right.
That's a lost art that we're going to have to relearn because the last 20 years of social media have drained it out of our bodies. But let's stop for a second and reflect on this one thing. We do have a lot to be fearful of, folks.
Yeah.
The risks are real. The next generation, and I come at this as a parent with a 16-year-old in the house and a 13-year-old in the house. And I've watched in gasping horror as the social worlds they're in have just been set back 20 years. And instead of tackling the problems that we need to tackle as a society, namely how to deal with climate change, um, instead of doing that, they're going to have to be focusing on clawing back their basic civil and human rights. 1 year, 1 year it took for that to happen. There's
Yeah.
still plenty left to lose. So if moderates are saying, I want us to temper the way we approach our goals and aspirations so that more conservative voters might be peeling away from the Trump camp. There's reason to feel that way. But
Mhm.
Hannah, I feel like you might view this from a different angle.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Uh, kind of.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
How would you react to all of this?
I mean, for one, I 100% agree that we're in grave danger, folks.
Yes.
And we should all be like, have a serious and somber like moment of like recognition for where we're at.
Yes,
Um,
ma'am.
but it was exactly as Carmen said, like gradually, and then it was suddenly.
Yes.
Like the the dominoes fell long before like any of this
Right.
happened. It happened long before 20. It goes back, it predates all of this. You know, the the rabid base of the right began, pre even Obama. I remember even
Yeah.
just during the Obama campaigns, like being in middle school in 2008 and like working on that campaign, I
Right.
saw all kinds of things. And one of the things that I remember very clearly was this downtown protest in 2008, an anti-Obama protest, essentially, of like these early MAGA type people. And this woman had this big sign and she was walking around and it said, "Got rope." And it was shocking, right? And it was like,
Mhm.
oh God, like somebody actually is like saying that publicly. And like, my mom has stories of them driving around at the courthouse and opening their doors, trying to hit protesters and shit like that. And so none of this is new. And I think that that's a missing piece to this puzzle. Like everyone in our camp is sitting around, and even like even people out of the camp that aren't in that camp are sitting around looking around going, "How did this happen? Like, oh my God, I'm so surprised. I'm so shocked." I'm not.
I'm not
This
either.
this
No.
has been we have been sounding the alarms for 20 plus years.
Mhm.
This is not a surprising thing that any of this is happening. And a
No.
lot of the failures in the Democratic Party, and this is, I think, maybe a differentiator between a progressive and a moderate. And I don't know if it rings true for our moderate here, Carmen. You can let me know. But I think the difference maybe is that we are exhausted and irritated and tired of the poor leadership decisions through the Democratic Party. For example, the absolute fumble of the primary when Biden insisted that he was going to be our nominee and that mofo was going to take it to the end. And we were all begging for an open primary and nobody listened. They spent money to block people from being on the primary ballot when he was running originally in the primary. We did not have an option. Most states did not even have an option to say, hey, we actually want something else. They didn't even give us that opportunity. And it's really interesting that the party that claims that we want to give a voice to the voiceless and we want to, listen to everybody and we're, the circus with the big tent and we invite everybody. But yet when the majority of people are screaming and begging for somebody else, they refused to listen. They dug their claws even deeper and they lost us the election before it even started. And that is, I think, a conversation that the Democratic Party has shied away from and refused to even listen to. And this ties in directly with the conversation about, the ego and dealing with people that have differing opinions than us and, questioning their intelligence and all that stuff. Like, how do we level with people that think differently than us? The big problem with the people on the right and getting people out of Trump's camp is their ego is getting in the way. They don't want to admit that they were wrong. Switching sides and coming over here is an admittance that they were wrong about what they had believed in and what they stood firmly on. And the Democratic Party has the exact same issue. And the issue is that they refuse to admit that they were wrong.
Yep.
And they are bursting at the seams with people that think differently and in terms of like from the leadership and, top down politics within the politics. It's a mess. And they're digging their claws into this ideology that like they know what they're doing because they're the Dems and they're the good people. And why would you question the good people when you have to be able to take criticism from your own camp in order to make positive change. So that's kind of, I think, like the bigger fish that the Democrats need to fry instead of questioning the issues of like dealing with MAGA, like forget about MAGA. They are going to run rampant and do their crazy racist, like insane radical
They're
thing.
eating themselves.
And they're gonna like whatever that's gonna do is what it's gonna do. What we need to focus on is we need to rebuild our own foundation before we stop worrying about everybody else's house.
So, Hannah, it sounds like you, to me, and please correct me if I'm misinterpreting this, but it sounds like you feel betrayed by the party.
Yes.
Carmen,
Yes.
how do you respond to that?
Oh, I think they're all fair points. I mean, the thing that I've noticed over time is people get, like Hannah was saying before, people get into office and they have good intentions. And then I think, the thing that I learned several years back that really changed my mind about a lot of things was I learned that if you're a senator or you're a congressman, that there are buildings in Washington D.C. when you're in town that you have to go there and they have phone banks because your only job is getting on the phone and getting money for your campaign because
Mm.
you run again. You just got there and you can't even breathe because you gotta get money. Now, I don't know if that was before Citizens United or after or both. But yeah, I would say, and the older people get, and even with the Democratic Party, we're supposed to be the party of inclusion, but there's a lot more white men. I mean, it looks way more diverse than the Republican Party. The Republican Party is doing a really great job of their crazy messaging, like we're supposed to be that we're anti-racist if we you know what I mean? If we go, wait a minute, what are all these men doing here? There's no diversity. They've made it like an ugly name and they've done such a wonderful job of that. But
Ugly marketing at its best.
yes, absolutely. But I think that the really progressive end of our party didn't serve us well in this regard, what I've noticed. And in the last month or two, it's happened to me like 4 different times where I'll say something and either I haven't gotten my whole sentence out, which is probably why I'm just trying to jump in too, and the hens start clucking and screaming, okay? Or I say the wrong word, God forbid. I fuck up one of those letters in the alphabet. And immediately I'm corrected. And
Are you talking about, forgive me, Carmen, are you speaking about like gender
Progressive.
issues?
Gender
Like, for
issues,
example,
racism stuff, like, okay, a black person gets killed and suddenly it's racist. We don't know it's racist. That should never be our first go-to, which I think is what the conservative side is saying. But they're like saying that and then plussing it for purposes of exaggeration, because in negotiations, if you want here, you start there, right? You start at the ridiculous. You follow? So I don't want anybody, like, and it's happened, like I said, I'll make a comment and they'll say, well, and it's not even something that I feel, but maybe I'm making a comment about something on the news. Well, that's just racist. Well, but how do you know? Don't you ask questions? Like the biggest thing that helped me in my life is when I was at a different real estate company, and the saying there was, come from curiosity, not from judgment.
Mm.
So it taught me to ask questions like, well, why do you feel that way? And I'll give like a real quick example in real estate. High tension wires. When we were selling new construction, I was managing sales, and we'd have communities that were built right around high tension wires, right? And so generally our thought is, if somebody says, well, yeah, but these high tension wires, is that where the house that I want to build is going? That's, we think, if we're very progressive, that it's about cancer, right? But we don't know. We just assume that they think what we think, okay? And I will never forget the sales trainer training us to say, well, how do you know it's about health? Well, maybe they just think it's fucking ugly. So we were
Fair.
taught to, and Roland Nairnsey, if you're out there, this is on you, babe. We were taught to say, what is it about the high tension wires that bother you?
Hmm.
So in
Mhm.
my world, I think,
Mm.
why can't we say that about, like, well, what is it about me not knowing the alphabet that bothers you? Is it that you think I'm not being respectful? Is it that you think that, like you're just a word Nazi? What is it? And if we could ask the questions, then we can, probably understand one another. Because my theory is this: I should be able to fuck up with another human being in a conversation that's 2 minutes long as it's clear I'm coming from love. But I don't think that's how the world plays. And I
Well,
think the progressives that I've talked to that are really progressive, I would say farther left, seem to have that like almost immediate like impulse to like correct me or correct people. And I think older people really go, oh, fuck, no, babe. So then we become annoying, like, do you know, and it becomes a generational thing when it doesn't need to be, because, honestly, as much as boomers and some Gen X's criticize millennials and Z's and all that, I think they're brilliant. But
Thank you.
I had the honor of working with them at the beginning of the internet days when people didn't know what the World Wide Web was, okay? So it was that experience in my life that taught me how brilliant they were, because I was the oldest person at the company, including the owner, by about 15 years. So, and maybe because I don't have kids, it was like, wow, it was like this social experiment, right? Maybe for people that have kids, they don't even think about it, because who can even think about something that ridiculously deep in the daily life? But it struck me so much, like, oh my God, these kids are smart. They're socially awkward, they're socially different, but they're really freaking smart. And I like smart people. I like conversation, debate, words, etc. So yeah.
It's all those growth hormones in our milk and food that made our
Sorry
brains
about
bigger.
that.
It's the radiation
you
from the high
confused.
tension wires, Carmen.
Yep. Your fault,
It
Carmen.
grew our brains. No, oh my gosh. I actually love that you brought that up because I feel like like the fact that we only take one communications class in all of school is a serious oversight. And I
Mhm.
think that generally, like, if we want to, burn the whole education system down and start over, the first thing that I would want to reform would be more of life skills and really hammering in the skill, because it is a skill,
It is a
of
skill.
communication.
Yes.
Of
Mhm.
communication and empathy. I think empathy can be, I think we're all born with it, but I think empathy can be learned and can be improved on, and I think that everything that you said is totally valid. But at the same time, the counter argument is we have to remember where a lot of the folks that are coming in to these conversations so hot
Yes.
is because of their lived experience. If you look at it from
Theater
an
girls?
abusive situation, you take a woman who has been severely beaten by every man that she has ever experienced since birth. When she runs into a man in public, she's going to cower, because her lived experience is any man is going to come with a heavy hand. And we all know that not all men are bad. Man that I call my
Yes, you
husband
do.
that would never, ever, do that, right? And so we know that it's completely unrealistic to assume that every single person that is a male is a terrible person. But the lived experiences of many people who have that thought are from that experience. And so when you're, discussing these topics, or you accidentally misgender somebody, or you make a comment where somebody says, "Oh, that's racist," and we want to, we want to agree and say, "Yeah, you're right. It was a mistake, and mistakes happen, and we're human." And like, your argument is that you want me to treat you like a human being, and yet you're coming at me and not treating me like an equal human being that is also equally flawed. But we have to remember where they're coming from, and where they're coming from is a place of hurt. And hurt people hurt people. And hurt people can easily manipulate a situation in their mind unintentionally to see aggression where there isn't aggression. And I think that there is a big disconnect, not in liberal, progressive versus moderate, but in generation.
Yes.
A
Fair
generational
point.
perspective difference, because back when you were growing up, I mean, I wasn't there, so I don't know for sure, but
I
my
wasn't there half
my
the time either.
understanding is that in those, it was very common for those things to be, everything was behind closed doors, right? And that those things were not to be discussed. Mental health was not a thing. Less people were autistic, not because there were literally less autistic people, it's because less people knew what autism was. There was less depression, not because people were actually less depressed, it's because nobody talked about it. And now we're in a hypersensitive world and society where that stuff is thankfully coming up and being discussed and normalized, but there's a double-edged sword to that, because then it causes this overcompensation. It's like when you're cooking, right? And there's not enough salt in your dish, and then you like overcompensate with that and dump way too much, and now the dish is so salty you can't even eat it. And that, again, I think is just a learned thing that we have to, each individual needs to work on. We need to work
Talking
on
about
being
defense
more,
mechanisms here.
yeah. And I think a lot of it has to do with that. When you're dealing with like my joint disorder, I have Ehlers-Danlos, and it is this saying when it comes to rare diseases in the medical world. They say, when you hear hoofbeats in the distance, think horses, but remember that zebras do exist. And I think that same exact thing applies to exactly what we're talking about right now.
That's fascinating.
That is fascinating and really good points. And what just occurred to me is I'm probably in my own little bubble in certain ways, because I did not grow up in that world that you described where everything was under the table. Now, there were quite a few things that I learned later in life from my mom that she kept hidden from me and protected me from. But I was a very confused, child. And, when I was like 18, I told my mom that I think there's something wrong with me. I'm having nightmares. I don't feel good. I'm going to go into Yellow Pages and look for therapy. And I did that myself. And that was like in 1980, 1979. Nobody did that. So I was a pioneer in being crazy. You know what I mean? And I've been diagnosed my entire life with anxiety or depression, and I've talked about it. Now, I probably haven't talked about it as much as in my brain I've talked about it, so I think I've talked it over, ad nauseum. Although I have friends that would tell you I have talked about it ad nauseum, but I get what you're saying. And what I tell older people when they criticize younger people is two things. Well, don't look at me. I didn't give birth to any of them. If you think they're fucked up, you raised them. Wasn't me, right? And so, because it's silly. What do you like? You're criticizing your own creation. But yeah, I mean, all those things existed: autism, ADHD, et cetera, et cetera. And I think the story that always comes to mind that I learned in a sociology class at Purdue, and I didn't graduate either, Hannah. I'm a Purdidn't. I went to Purdue, but I didn't graduate. Purdidn't. But anyway, they were talking about a little girl goes out of her bedroom, goes into the living room of the house. Her mom and dad are there, and she sees this elephant in the middle of the living room. And the little girl goes, "Mom, Dad, how come there's an elephant in the middle of the living room?" And the mom and dad are like, "What elephant?" So next day, same thing, comes in the living room. "Mom, Dad, how come there's an elephant in the middle of the living room?" "What elephant?" this goes on day after day after day after day. Like a month later, her little girlfriend comes over to play with her, and they walk in the back door, and they head up to the front to say hello to mom and dad. And her little girlfriend says, "Hey, how come you guys have an elephant in the middle of your living room?" And the little girl says, "What elephant?"
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's when we know. I don't want to say the word brainwashed because it sounds like insulting, but I think that's when we know that we've aligned with the thought processes that others are feeding us on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's hard to catch.
Yes. And
Sometimes
I
it's hard to
think,
catch.
to your point, it's hard for me to catch because I think I'm more like you than I am like them. But your generation of people just see me naturally and assume I'm like them. So if we haven't had a chance to laugh and giggle and stuff first, because it never happens in places where I'm working with a client, because I tend to get like really young clients, first time buyers, and then the last time buyers. And the first time buyers love me because I'm like the cool aunt. So it happens with strangers that don't get an experience of the whole me. But I would guess, and I'm kind of a trained communicator still in training, so I can really now understand how it would come from somebody that's not as in tune or aligned with communicating and having empathy and showing that empathy. Because, I mean, in our generation, the same thing happened with women. And I know you were just using that as an example, but we didn't have the resources. And in the 70s, we started fighting for those resources. Not me. I just stayed at home and took advantage of whatever they did. But women started fighting for those resources. And I think maybe that the older women might feel like you're standing on our shoulders. We already did this. And there's that. And there's oh my God, we did this already. I'm exhausted. Do we have to win this again? Are you fucking kidding me? So, in that regard, maybe not so bad that these progressives want to get it done now and just like in your face, like, no, we're doing it this way. We're changing it right now. That's enough.
Time's up. So what's interesting to me here is I'm seeing two really passionate, committed camps of people. And on one side, we have, and it feels to me, based on what I'm hearing here in this conversation, is that fear is the dividing line between them. And two very different types of fear. One is a fear of making a mistake that will make things worse and keep Trump in power. The other is a fear that you can't stand for things to be the way they are for one more second because life is too awful. So, and listening to you respond to each other with such willingness to listen and empathy and all the big good things that we've been trying to promote with our children over these last few generations, has really made me feel hopeful that, I think we might be onto something here. Not that we're like a trio of geniuses, but it sounds like, what it's talking about is people want to feel that their value system and their concerns are being heard and given respect.
Right.
Whatever those concerns are. So, do you two have any ideas about how we can take what we're sort of teasing at here and move it outward? Like, how can progressives and moderates align better with each other?
I think keep the conversations going. But I would add to that also, like, just to go back for a second. At this point, a year in, and the damage that I've seen is done, I'm more at her speed is the better speed. Maybe not all the tactics, but the better speed is like, oh, it's 911. So, but I think communication and conversations. That's why she named her podcast Conversations. What's that rap song?
Thanks for the
Conversations
plug.
at Hennessy. I don't drink Hennessy, but Yep.
Conversations with Hannah, see?
Oh, yeah!
I'll see myself out.
We see what you
We got a
there.
comedian and a straight man, right?
I'm the queen of the dad joke, okay? My kids hate me for it. Juliana, if you're listening, that one was for you. Um,
They're thanking you.
yeah, right?
Her.
So so interesting. You mentioned like you feel like my speed is better at this point. And I appreciate that. But I think that there is merit in the gradual, like the big picture, right? And I think that that's something that we shouldn't just shove to the side and,
Right.
you know, like we got to run because you're right. It is 911. We're in an emergency. There is a fire. It is happening. The house is on fire. And the firefighters, they are out of water. And we got to figure out what to do. And we have to assess and look and see, is the house salvageable, or is this a total loss? Are we going to be rebuilding from scratch, or are we renovating? And, you know, real estate term, there's two totally different ways of handling like a flip, right? Are you gutting it, or are you just going to paint the pig? Right? Are you going to just throw in some nice granite countertops and call it a day when that sewer scope is going to show more tree roots in your sewer system than you've ever seen outside in the grass? You know, like that is a problem. And I think that that's where we're at. I think right now the house is on fire, and I'm getting worried that it's not a salvageable structure anymore. And we're getting to that point, right? Like we've already gone down, like we've tick, 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 tick. And now the roller coaster, we are nose diving down, and we need to focus on the parachute, right?
Yes.
We got to we like put the mask on and then help others.
Yep.
And I think that the problem that we face right now as a society is never going to be solved at the societal level.
Nope.
The solution is within ourselves. One of my favorite quotes is from a very conservative man. His name is Andy Frisella. Like if you were to look him up, you'd be like, you follow him? What is wrong with you? We think very differently on the political spectrum, but we do come together on the same ideology. And his quote is, "Personal excellence is the ultimate rebellion."
Absolutely.
If they want you fat, get fit. If they want you sick, get well. If they want you stupid, get smart. And, you know, the more that you are under the thumb, the easier you are to control. And at the end of the day, when you're looking at this hierarchy of control and power, Democrat, Republican, it doesn't matter. The labels don't matter. When you go all the way to the top of the pyramid, we don't know who's up there, but we know that it's connected at the end of the day. And so what we need to do as individuals is we need to stop trying to save the world, and we need to start saving ourselves.
That's right. Yeah.
Because when we save ourselves and we
The world is
invest in
saved.
ourselves and we invest in our health and our wellness, and we invest in our minds, and we invest in exuding kindness to our own selves and expressing self-love to ourselves, which is like such a snowflake thing to do. I know, oh my gosh, self-love. But the reality is that self-love is what makes you tough. And the when you love yourself with so much conviction, and you are bursting at the seams with love and adoration for yourself, and you are able to share that love with others, you're healing the world.
Yes.
One person at a time. The butterfly effect is what's going to save the world.
That's right.
Because at the end of the day, we are a blip. We are a
Blip in the screen.
1/1,000,000th we are the pale blue dot at the end of the day.
I feel like I have to unleash my inner black woman at church on Sunday. Like, sing it, sister, say it, tell it like it is.
Like when the world becomes too much, and I can't, like, and I feel the weight of the world on my shoulders every single day, every waking moment of my life, I feel that pressure. And I feel like that can be felt in every generation, but especially us, especially our generation raising the next generation. Like, I was taught to leave things better than how they were given to me, and I am handing over a world that is in worse shape, and that makes me sick.
Yes.
And so the only way that you can handle and bear the weight is by focusing on yourself. And there is a level of selfishness that is ultimately selfless that we all need to be reminded of. So there's that. That's one piece of the puzzle. That's like the main thing, right? But then piece number 2 is going to be DEI, baby, diversity, equity, and inclusion. We want to talk about progressive values. Let's go. No,
Bring it.
DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is not some crazy progressive ideology that it has been shaped out to be. The reality of the situation is here. We're having a wonderful conversation, and I think it's very helpful and wonderful, and I'm really loving it, and I hope whoever's listening to it is loving it too. But at the end of the day, we are 3 white women, privileged white women from the Midwest who don't really have a whole lot to lose in the grand scheme of things, okay? And the conversations that we need to be having is going to go beyond our circle of influence. And when you bring in moderates and progressives and all of that and bring us all together, that's great. But the real work and the real healing and the real developing of empathy is going to come from conversating with people from outside our own realities. Because perception is truth. Every single one of us is experiencing our own perception of the truth, and that reality is our reality, whether it's right, wrong, or whatever.
Reality.
And so in order for us to heal the perception of the world, it's going to be our own perceptions again. And that's going to require stepping outside our comfort zones and having conversations with people that don't look like us, that don't talk like us, that aren't from where we're from, that don't believe what we believe. And those conversations are going to have to continue to happen in public and behind closed doors. And we all need to be willing to recognize where our privileges lie and where our own perception is clouding our judgment and be okay with that. Because unless we're okay with it, if we can't admit it, we're never going to be able to change it.
We all need friends that will tell us,
Mm-hmm.
not in a nasty way. We all get kind of sensitive about tone of voice, and I'm as blunt as they come too. But I think when we can learn to critique each other in a very kind and loving way, then we're able to admit that we did something that wasn't ideal.
Yeah.
We could have done it a better way. But when somebody's coming at you like this, like you said before, we can't admit it.
No, and we won't, and we never
'Cause we're too
will. And it doesn't
defensive.
matter. Exactly. And it's ego at the end of the day. It's
Yeah, it's
human
like
condition.
you just said, I'm a bad person. Now I
Right.
feel
They
shame
hear
and
it.
guilt, right?
Yes, yes. And we need to be able to embrace that shame and embrace that guilt and use it for good. Use that chip on your shoulder to go be better. Identify your privilege so that you can freaking use it, man. Use that privilege to help the other people who have a different privilege and who have a different issue.
Well, sounds like
You see why I like her? You see?
Mm-hmm.
See why I like young people, and especially this one.
Well, folks, you heard it here. We all need to get started talking, and based on this conversation, we're going to be doing more of that. I guarantee you I will be holding more of these because what's come out of it has been so amazing. If we can start we need to find a way for us to all remember how to speak to each other with the kind of compassion but honest feedback that we've seen here. And
That's what we preach.
amen, sister. So I am going to be doing more of that. NWI, this has been amazing. Hannah, Carmen, I can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing your thoughts so openly and connecting with each other and really giving us a place to start from to have these conversations, at least here in the region.
Yeah.
And as much as I can facilitate that, I'm going to do it. In the meantime, NWI, it's cold, but it wouldn't be bluer by the lake if I didn't tell you that I'm going to go up to the lake. I don't know if that's really true, but I'm going to try. In the meantime, stay warm, stay kind to each other, and be tuned because I'm going to do this again. All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.